Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Glad you guys are joining me. Today, I wanted to talk quickly, or maybe not so quickly, about the latest Enlisted patch. Kind of do like an overall feels feedback video for the update. I used to do these for every patch, and then I realized I kind of just stopped doing them. I'm not really sure why. I think they're a fun thing to do, and I know that the Enlisted helpers love looking through the comments and gathering a lot of the feedback to send directly to the devs. So I figured I would start doing them again, starting with this patch. The way we do this is we talk about the good stuff, and then we talk about the bad stuff. So we're going to start off, of course, with the good stuff, and I think there's a lot to say about this update. The update overall feels kind of weird and is definitely, I don't know, it feels like there's less hype around it, weirdly enough, than there was with, say, the Gorilla patch. But nevertheless, I think that this patch had a lot of good stuff. Namely, I think the best of the best is the content itself that was added. There was a lot of very long requested and long awaited things. The Super Pershing and the MG42-100 are both things that people have been waiting on for so long in Enlisted. For the Super Pershing, at least the better part of the entire year since that thing was announced. So people are really happy to finally see that, and I think that's awesome. There really isn't any like filler content that was added. Maybe the motorcycle squads for like the Japanese and the Soviets, but like every faction really needs to have those, and it felt weird that only the Germans and the Allies had those before. So I don't really think that's very like, I don't really see that as like filler. That's really just like filling in the gaps, which I know still has the word fill in it, but it doesn't feel like they added stuff that is just like increasing the grind for no reason, right? I think everything that added that was added is something that like people would definitely want to use and is like a good addition to the game overall, and to the overall, quality and health of the game. Next up, I wanted to talk about the new maps. The new Burma map is incredible. It is absolutely fantastic. The worst part of the map is that it's hard to get it right now. Like, I don't feel like I've gotten to play on the map very much at all, which sucks because the times that I have played have been absolutely incredible. The map is beautiful. It plays really well. It's unique, both in the Pacific campaign and in Enlisted in general. It's very, very urban, which I love. It's just so much fun. And it's very, again, it's urban, but in a way that feels very different than like Berlin or Stalingrad or even the more city maps in Normandy and things like that. It is a fantastic map. I really, really love it. The devs have really outdone themselves in terms of the map design for the new set of maps. And I really hope we continue getting similar maps. And I hope they expand on the Burma campaign with more like urban warfare maps, because it plays so well. And I don't know. I think a big reason it plays well is because it plays well for infantry. And I think that infantry is really the core of Enlisted. And when you have maps that the core of Enlisted are able to enjoy in a solid way, it's really well. And I don't know. I hope the devs take and look at that feedback and maybe consider doing more like very infantry-centric maps. Maybe even doing game modes that are exclusively infantry. I know that people really like tanks. I like tanks. You guys know that. I like flying planes. You guys know that. But at the end of the day, I think having an infantry-only game mode would be a really interesting thing to have for Enlisted, and is something that I really think the devs should be taking very seriously as we go forward. Because I don't know. I really think it would be good for the overall health of the game to have some option there, at least for, only for this map or something like that. Now we get on to the stuff that's not really like, it's like good, but also not great. It's like the fine stuff, right? We have like the good, the fine, and the bad, right? So the new effects for the game, the new blood effects and stuff, I know people are really excited about this and they think it looks really good. I don't know. I don't really care about that kind of stuff. I feel like I don't really notice it. I don't know. Maybe people disagree with me, and maybe people are like, wow, this effects really changed the way the game plays and makes it feel way more chaotic. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. That's awesome. I'm glad it works out for you. But for me, I'm just kind of like, all right, cool. It's, I'm glad they're adding stuff. I'm glad they're making the game a little bit prettier, but that's just, any game I play, that's never really a high priority for me. I'm not the type to sit back and look around and be like, whoa, this stuff just looks so gorgeous. Like, nothing on you if that's your thing, but it's not my thing. So I don't have a lot of feedback in that department. The new event is also fine. They're doing their standard 20,000 points event. People have been giving feedback about that specific style of event for a long time. I don't think there's anything I can say regarding that the devs haven't already seen or heard of already. So I won't. And then finally, we have some buffs to premium squads, adding the ability to bring an anti-tank soldier. And I don't know, I think I need this one to sit with me a little bit more to know if it's good or bad. So I'm kind of putting it in this little like middle category. I don't think it's enough to make these squads really pay to win or push them over any kind of line. But I do think it's something that could be a potential issue in the future. I'm not sure. I don't know if it even would be an issue. I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's something where I'm like, but it's not something that immediately jumps out to me as like a problem. I guess that's maybe the best way to put it. So definitely something that I think you guys should leave some feedback for the devs down below regarding. It's something that's been requested a lot, and I do think it's probably a good thing overall. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. Now, let's get on to the bad stuff for this patch. Let's start off with, I think, the easiest thing and the quickest thing, the rider buffs, the motorcycle buffs. While I think the motorcycle buffs were fine and were not something like, it's not like they were bad buffs or stupid or anything like that, I think that they just didn't do enough. Arguably, they didn't do anything. I don't think adding an extra soldier to these squads, making them 3-man squads before when they were 2, or compared to before when they were 2, matters. I mean, I can bring a 9-man infantry squad, so being able to bring a 3-man infantry squad effectively with this motorcycle, that's a really easy target to hit, doesn't feel very substantial to me. On top of that, motorcycles, yeah, can bring ammo, which is cool. But also, I can build ammo boxes. I can call in an ammo box with a radio operator. I just don't see that being... It's a cool feature, but I don't see it as being a substantial buff to the class, right? It doesn't feel like that is substantially going to, like, make or break the class. And so it just doesn't seem like a very relevant thing to me to be added, right? It just seems like... It seems like they added some things that, while cool, are not things that are, like, exceptionally, like, changing what riders do as a class, I guess, is the best way to put it. I think the biggest problem with the riders as a class is the fact that APCs exist, right? Like, previously, riders were very good for just, like, zooming to a far-off angle and you know, spot to build a rally point, but now you can just do that with an APC, and, like, what's the point of the motorcycle, right? Like... nothing, right? I think that motorcycles are fine at low BRs for offering you like a little bit of firepower, but I think that at high BRs they really need to change. I think that honestly the best buff to the rider class would be adding rider 2s to the game and giving us armored jeeps, right? Like an armored jeep, or even just like, maybe not even armored, but just like a jeep with a 50 cal on the back that we can use. Give us, like, it could be like a 5-man squad or something like that, because you could fit 5 people into a Jeep like that, you know, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and then 1 on the gun, right? Like, I think that would probably be the best overall buff to the class, because again, they're fine at BR2 with those machine guns. They're, you know, they can dish out enough damage to hold their own and be okay as a 3-man squad. But once you get to BR5, like, man, why would I bring a motorcycle with a 30 cal on it when I could bring a 3-man squad all armed with 30 cals? It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter. There's no reason to do that, especially when the whole squad is 3-man, right? So it just doesn't end up mattering a whole lot, in my opinion, and I would rather just have a bigger squad or bring like an APC or something like that, and that's why the squad, I think, struggles a lot. The other thing that I wanted to mention, well, there's a couple other things. The next thing I want to mention is that the content balance is out of whack with this patch. And I don't mean balance as in power levels. That's kind of a different discussion. What I'm talking about is the content that was added for each faction. So what I'm basically saying here is that the allies got so much stuff, and no one else really got anything substantial. The Allies got every single major gap in their lineup filled. The Super Pershing filled their tank problem, the Offenrohr filled up their anti-tank problem, and the Hyde filled their assaulter weapon problem. To where the Allies now don't have any gaps in their lineup, which is fine. I'm not complaining about that. But what I am complaining about is the fact that they got this all at the same time, on top of getting all of the premium squads, with the exception of one, part of the bundle for the premium squad for the Japanese. There's too much content that's being added to one faction in this. Like, it makes the other factions like, well, what did they really get? Like, Germany got a long-awaited gun, which was cool, but Japan got a BR-5 tank that they really don't care about. They got a machine gun, which is, while cool, not something that I think they particularly needed or cared about. And then the Soviets got a motorcycle and then a plane, which, again, I don't really think they particularly care. And so, I mean, this is going to be an issue, I think, with any update, and it has been an issue historically with every update. But I think that this is a problem that is exceptionally bad with this patch, and is something that the developers really should be thinking more about. I think the game would have been a lot better, and the patches probably would have felt a lot better if they would have spaced maybe the Super Pershing out, or maybe the Offenrohr out with like a patch ago or something like that. Because I'm pretty sure the Allies got like not good weapons in the last patch. Right, maybe they got the T-20. I can't really remember off the top of my head when the T-20 came out and what was in the last patch, but I really find it hard to believe that they wouldn't have been able to like space these weapons out a little bit better throughout the patches this year, to just kind of make it flow a little bit better, and to have a better balance between the different factions and the different gear that they get per faction, or per update, rather. And then this is going to turn into a little bit of a rant, so, prepare yourselves. I think that a major problem with Enlisted right now is that factions are becoming kind of indistinguishable from one another. And I'm going to point towards the Offenrohr as the prime example of this happening, although there are other examples of this as well. I don't think the Allies should have gotten the Offenrohr. I think that they should have gotten some sort of super bazooka. And before you flip out and say the super bazooka wasn't used until Korea, that's not entirely true. There were prototypes that were being tested for better rockets and things like that. And while, yes, it was never in combat, or it might not have ever even been done, neither was the Hyde, neither was the Ho Reed. The Super Pershing hardly saw any combat, if it did at all, actually. I can't remember if it did. Maybe it did. Regardless, the point is that there's a lot of prototypes in Enlisted. There's a lot of equipment that never saw combat, that was a paper prototype, or if it was real, there was only like 8 of them made, and yet they are mainline tech tree weapons. And so I don't think the argument that like, oh, this shouldn't be in the game because it wasn't, like, it was just like a prototype or whatever. Like, I think that having uniqueness for the factions is a lot more important. And I think that adding just like, oh, now the Americans get the German Offenrohr because they didn't have enough anti-tank, is a really boring way to balance the factions. I mean, in my honest opinion, I don't even think they should have gotten any additional AT. I think the M9 was fine. I know a lot of people struggle using the M9, and they think that it's not good enough to deal with things like the King Tiger, which I think is ridiculous because it is fine enough. You just need to flank with it. And honestly, even if it's not good enough, I don't know, figure it out. I think that's fine. Like, I don't think the Allies were like getting absolutely curb stomped by like King Tigers last. They have the options. They have P-47s. They have HVARs. They've got other planes. They've got the M9. They've got explosive packs, AT mines. Like, I don't know. I think that just adding this like really powerful anti-tank tool that should be exclusive to Germany reduces the variety and the uniqueness of each faction. And I think that that's just like a really unfortunate thing for the game. I think it makes every faction play similarly. I think it makes every faction feel like I'm just kind of playing the same faction but with different uniforms on. And I think that that's boring. I think at the end of the day, I think the M9, the 1944 Hyde is probably another example of this to an extent. I think they're trying to add this weapon that probably shouldn't have been added. Although I think I'm being biased maybe with the Hyde example, because I don't know. The more I think about the Hyde, the more I just kind of wish it wasn't in the game and they would have just made Thompson's effective the way the Hyde is. Just make Thompson's hit really hard. But that just goes back to the point of the uniqueness of the factions, right? Instead of allowing the US to feel different than Germany, they, had to give the US a T-20, which is just like supposed to be on par with the FG-42, which just like feels lame to me. The M2 carbine was good and was good enough to go toe to toe. It just wasn't as good. It offered a different role. It was slightly different. And instead of allowing that difference to exist and maybe shoring up the difference and like playing more into the strengths of the US, like having the US be more of like a close range firepower faction, the way they are in lower BRs, they instead just gave them the T20. And again, this, I don't know, I'm getting off topic. Maybe this is a topic that I'll talk about in like a different video, but I think that the open door kind of exemplifies this problem that really bugs me, where these factions are just becoming so samey. They're becoming identical to one another, to where it's like, am I playing the Soviets or am I playing a bunch of Americans dressed up in, you know, Soviet gear wearing red stars? Am I playing the Germans, or am I just playing as like the Americans using FG-42s, right? Like, am I the Americans or am I just playing as the Germans? Like, it's just, it feels weird to me, and I don't like it. I hope that's not too much of a ramble, and hopefully I'm getting my point across with that. My final point has to do with high explosives, and this is, again, something that I think I'm going to cover in a future video more in depth. But in regards to this patch, I don't think that it was correct for the developers to buff planes and increase, effectively double the firepower of planes by allowing them to fire their rockets one at a time, as opposed to pairing them up, or their bombs for that matter, without having a nerf to compensate for that. Because what they've effectively done is just buffed planes, which didn't need to be buffed, and now are even more powerful than they used to be, which really makes BR5 kind of a shithole to play, more so than usual. So again, this is something that can be discussed in a future video, and I definitely think will be discussed in a future video, so keep an eye out. But I think it's something that is worth noting because it is relevant to the patch, because they did buff planes in this patch, and I don't think they should have. But that's it. I don't think I'm missing anything. I think I've hit basically everything that was in this patch. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments below. And of course, guys, let the devs know your thoughts down below in the comments. The helpers are going to be combing through and letting people share their thoughts and giving those thoughts to the developer. So definitely make sure your voice is heard. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Helps me out, yada, yada, yada. I appreciate it, guys. Seriously, I do. Join our Discord so you can, be part of a great community. And, yeah, thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time. Take it easy.